Welcome to Tabletop Tommies. This is the first video in what is going to be a bit of a vlog. I'm building a whole new army from the ground up. So today I'm starting with the ground and I'm making some magnetized cobblestone bases. The new army is going to be Soviets to battle my Fortress Budapest Germans, like this little fella here. I based him in exactly the same way as I'm going to show you today. It's the easiest way I've found to make cobblestone bases, suited to that urban fighting environment. It took less than an hour to make enough bases for the full 1250 point Soviet force I've got planned, with the exception of any of the lying down boys who, to be honest, I try to avoid using anyway. If you want to go this route for your basin, what you'll need is you're going to need a big stack of 25mm M6 penny washers available from any sort of hardware store. I got mine off eBay. Some 6mm magnets, 1mm thick. Again, you can pick these up on eBay, very cheap. And most importantly, you're going to need some faux lizard leather. You can buy it by the roll, or what you can do is just get yourself a 12 by 8 inch sample for about £1. That's what I did. I picked up 3, so I had 2 spare for when I inevitably mess it up or need more when I change the list after the first time playing it. All in, it cost less than £22 to make bases for the whole army, and at the end of it I'm going to have about 150 magnets left, which I can use to magnetise trucks, magnetise tanks, etc. I've been using the old penny washer and magnet superglued to the base trick to magnetise bolt action minis for ages now, and I may even make a video showing how I use the magnetised bases to store and transport models. But jumping into the how to make the bases section of the video, you can see I start by supergluing the bases to the back of the fabric, leaving enough space between them to cut them out. I deliberately offset them here so that if the fabric has a repeating pattern, I'd get random cobbles instead of duplicates. However, during the process of gluing all the washers, I realised no one will notice and it was pointless. You could probably use other glues to do it, but I don't really have the patience to wait for glue to dry, and so superglue is always my go-to for this sort of job. Once I've glued all the washers down, I take a good pair of scissors and I cut them into rows. In terms of gluing the magnets, it probably would have been easiest to glue them before this point when I've cut them into rows, but I thought it might make the cutting trickier if the magnets kept sticking to the scissors as I'm trying to cut the washers out, and so I decided to glue the magnets last. Once they're all cut into rows, I cut off the excess, one base at a time. It takes about 10 to 20 seconds a base, and it does get a bit arduous after about the 5th base, but it's easy to get into the zone with it, and it lets you focus on your favourite Bolt Action podcast's latest episode about the armies are hungry, or whatever they're banging on about this week. Putting them in little piles as you go is optional, but it does let you count them easily, so you can work out if you've made enough, if you are absent-minded enough to forget to count how many washers you've used up until this point. Then it's just a case of gluing a magnet into the bolt hole on each washer, one at a time. I like to keep the polarity the same on every base, because then once the first one is dry, you can stack them and the magnets will hold themselves in place against the fabric while the glue dries. It's also quite useful to have the polarity the same on all of them if you plan to make magnetic movement trays in the future, which is something I've dabbled with in the past, but I found it generally causes more issues than it solves for bolt action. Once all the magnets are glued, you should now have all the magnetic cobblestone bases you need to base your urban fighting force, and super glue all over your fingers, which will give you something to occupy the rest of the evening, trying to get it off. As a sloppy painter, I'll glue all the models to the unpainted bases, and as the final step of painting the force, I'll paint the bases dark grey, then dry brush them in increasingly lighter tones to get a result that looks something like this. Now, if you're a better painter, I imagine you could probably pre-paint the bases or make them look better than what I've achieved here. But they're good enough for my purposes as a view from 3 foot gaming standard painter. Hopefully this has been helpful if you're planning to make a street fighting force, or we're looking for an easy way to magnetise your bolt action models, as the penny washer magnet technique works perfectly on the standard bases that come with your bolt action figures. Please do subscribe if you want to see something more interesting than bits of fabric glued to penny washers, as I'll be making a full series documenting the Soviets from the packaging to the tabletop. But until then, ta-ta for now.